All right, President Trump's first year in office is about to wrap up, and he was actually able to come through on some of his bold campaign promises. He pulled America out of the Paris Climate Accord, recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, took an axe to regulations, and even helped usher through a big tax code overhaul. That's the biggest in 30 years. Now, the cornerstone of Trump's campaign was immigration reform through, and, well, this was his marquee promise.
We will build the wall, and Mexico will pay for the wall 100%. 100%.
That wasn't that long ago. That was just a month before he was elected. Now, of course, not much progress has been made on that wall, and I haven't seen Mexico pony up a penny yet, or a peso. But border crossings did hit a 45-year low in 2017, and whether you like it or not, the president was able to implement a temporary travel ban on several majority Muslim countries. So has he delivered on immigration? Well, let me go to my globe-trotting party panel tonight. She's a correspondent for the Greg Gutfeld Show. Katherine Timpf is here, and he's a columnist at the Daily Beast and producer of the Fifth Column podcast. Anthony Fisher rejoins, and Democratic strategist and former candidate for DNC chair, Jehmu Greene. Welcome, everyone.
Hey.
So if you are begrudgingly giving the president accolades for following through on campaign promises, what is his biggest follow-through, even if it's something you disagree with?
That's a great question, because he certainly has delivered on some campaign promises. Yes. I think that we have to give him credit for that. The number one thing I would have to say, I think it's probably the direction we're moving in with immigration. But I think we have to take a step back, Kennedy, because it's the big picture of his campaign promises that really hit people in the gut. Mm-hmm. He promised to take care of the sick and the poor. He promised to help those who didn't have a voice in D.C., who depend on Social Security, who depend on Medicare.
He's not cutting
He promised
Medicare
that actually his taxes would be raised.
I wish he would cut Medicare and Social Security. That would be fantastic.
He is not working for the little guy. In fact, you've got a CEO of a coal mining company who said after the tax cut, this guts us. You know, there are some really big picture promises as far as the economic.
It's funny because I have friends who hate the president and who have said, oh my gosh, this tax cut is actually going to benefit me. I can't believe it. I hate to give him any credit. And I know people do that begrudgingly, but there are also other areas. You know, he's done very well on ISIS. We talked about Paris. We talked about Jerusalem. But what are some areas that are critical where he's fallen short?
Where he's fallen short? Well, he hasn't drained the swamp. You know, he hasn't, he had promised to raise...
Is it possible for anyone to actually...
He's sort of replaced the swamp.
Yeah, I mean, you could attempt to it, you know, you know, there was, of the list of things that he's sort of kind of maybe accomplished, a lot of them were really like, he has pledged to do so, but he hasn't actually accomplished them. Like, he hasn't...
Like Jerusalem.
Jerusalem is probably not going to happen on his watch. You could maybe... The one thing, if I may give begrudging credit for, is that while he did initiate a attack on an airstrip in Syria, and he continues this abominable, to U.S. support of the abominable war in Yemen, he hasn't launched any new wars. And I'm almost certain that Hillary Clinton would have, because she promised to.
Yeah.
She promised boots on the ground in several countries.
She was very excited about that. I touched a little bit on the wall. I don't think that that is going to happen in its entirety. I think the president will probably get some parts of the wall built and have other parts that are beefed up with agents and drones, and, you know, say that that is a conceptual wall.
And people always ask, you know, what if he doesn't build the wall? What are his supporters going to do? Honestly, his hardcore supporters are so far behind him. What he could do is just tell them that he built the wall. And that would be good enough. Just say, I built it.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys been down there like, no, it's Mexico.
And then they'll call me an idiot on Twitter saying, he said he built it, he built it. They could go down there, see no wall, and be like, well, he said it was there, so it must be there.
But that really is a good point.
He could just say, just say you built it. Good enough for them.
There's even been some arguments from, you know, Democratic-friendly thinkers that if he builds, just concede it. Let the Democrats concede 100, 200 miles of wall, and they'll call it even, and then get them to concede on the dream.
It's got to be something like that, so we can get this DACA nonsense
wall
through. It's
probably
a wall.
Enough. Yeah.
It may not be a giant
technically
2,000-mile wall, but
it'll be beautiful and classy.
Very beautiful, and a beautiful door. Republicans have been trying to dismantle Obamacare since 2010. bless their hearts. And repeal and replace was another cornerstone of the president's campaign.
My first day in office, I'm going to ask Congress to put a bill on my desk getting rid of this disastrous law and replacing it with reforms that expand choice, freedom, affordability. You're going to have such great health care at a tiny fraction of the cost, and it's going to be so easy.
I love freedom. I love choosing. I love freedom to choose. Republicans failed on health care reform, but the GOP did knock out the individual mandate with the tax bill, and several Republicans haven't given up on this long-held promise. Should they move on or make another attempt at repeal in 2018? So again, not what should Republicans do? What will Republicans do on health care?
I think Senator Mitch McConnell has been pretty clear about it, that there is no there there. They're just not going to pick up health care. Again, the playing field for Republicans in 2018 is much harder than it was in 2017. So when you have one more Democratic senator and you have every single politician in D.C., the only thing they care about is getting reelected, healthcare isn't going to happen.
It's too toxic and it's too easy to fail. And if they do that again,
it actually was the one of the victories for the resistance, as far as all of the organizing on the ground across the country, where you had people say, no, you are not going to take this away. And even though they stripped so many of the ways that the program was marketed and promoted, you've seen record numbers of people sign up in this latest open enrollment period.
That's because there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah, it's not going to survive. I mean, I don't think that they have, like you said, there's no there, and it's a lot easier to run against something that exists like Obamacare than to come up with a plan that they actually have to own in the future, which they won't. I don't believe that they will. But you could say in the pre-Obamacare era there were problems. The Obamacare era there are different problems. Now they're just going to light the whole thing on fire, have no plan, and be like, well, maybe some point we'll deal with it. But they're not going to run on any new plan. They've had 10 years or more to come up with some kind of comprehensive Republican health care plan to replace Obamacare, and they don't have one.
Maybe we should just replace the parties instead of the health care.
I agree. I completely agree, especially because I don't think the Republican Party really knows what it is anymore.
Yeah,
I've said this before.
I would say the same thing about the Democratic Party. I think you have 4 distinct parties operating against each other at all times
Bernie
in Washington.
Sanders Democrats, and then there's the Hillary Clinton Democrats, and then there's Republicans who are actually fiscally conservative, and Republicans who aren't, but they just want to spend money on different stuff besides what the Democrats want to spend on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, and that's the one good thing about the generation that's moving forward is they are not beholden to either party. The party panel is beholden to your party, and they're going to return a little bit later. First up, however, reports claiming Republicans are in full panic mode over the prospect of a Democratic tidal wave in November. Does the GOP really have cause for concern? Chris Starwalt breaks it down next. Stay with me. The hits against the president keep on coming. First, Arizona Republican Senator Jeff Flake says he's planning a speech on the Senate floor on Wednesday to scold President Trump and the White House ahead of the scheduled Fake News Awards. Senator Flake has commented that by dubbing the media, quote, the enemy of the people, Donald Trump is honoring the inventor of that phrase, Joseph Stalin. Never mind that Stalin killed millions of political enemies, and our president just calls them out on Twitter. It's vastly different. Similarly, actor Sean Penn, who wrote an op-ed for Time magazine, well, he called the president an enemy of mankind and an enemy of compassion. Penn's comments were in response to the president's alleged vulgar words on certain third world countries. Will all of this name-calling actually result in a change or just more rising anger? The party panel is back. Kat Timpf, Anthony Fisher, and Jehmu Greene. Kat, I will start with you. I mean, I still think the words are not deeds. I think that the president betrayed some deeply held beliefs when he perhaps categorized certain parts of the world as assholes and said that, you know, and the kicker was saying that we need more immigration from places like Norway.
Yeah, white places is the comes off as pretty racist there. Very, very bad. And saying that the media is the enemy of the people is also very, very bad, because the media is for the people. It's supposed to keep the government in check, kind of like a fourth branch of government, and also tell us what's going on with the Kardashians, what they're wearing, when they're pregnant, what they're doing. Neither of
so many pregnant Kardashians.
Neither of those things makes them our enemy. That makes them our friend, because even if you think you don't care about the Kardashians, you care.
All right, so Sean Penn said, if we recognize President Donald Trump as an enemy of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, independents, and every new child born, an enemy of mankind, he is indeed an enemy of the state.
Okay.
Hyperbolic?
Totally. It's Sean Penn. You know, I mean, a couple things can be true. Donald Trump could be horrible and an enemy of mankind, and Sean Penn could be full of S, as you would have put it. He's been a fan of many enemies of mankind, not the least of which Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez. These are people who literally were dictators, not just playing one on TV or on Twitter.
And,
These are people
created hideous environments in their own countries. Through dissidents in prison,
through artists, homosexuals in prison, through AIDS patients in prison, kept their, in Castro's case, kept his island as a prison. These are people that Sean Penn considers paragons of humanity. So you can say that, part of his statement is correct and still, get rid of the messenger.
Completely dismiss his own personal philosophy. I like Sean Penn's acting.
He's great.
And some of his directing.
Sean Penn isn't president.
No.
And the sad reality is I've resigned myself to the fact that the current president of the United States is a racist. For years I've said, oh, he's not a racist, he just stokes racial tensions.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not a racist, but...
How do you define racist?
Well, it is certainly someone in his position who feels that if you have melanin in your skin, you are less worthy than somebody who doesn't have melanin. If by the color of your skin, it defines what type of country you come from, what contribution you can give to our nation's dialogue. This is a long-standing set of decisions.
So Democrats who have said essentially the same thing, are they racist?
I don't know which Democrats you're talking about. I'm happy to discuss individual incidents, but when you add up the totality of this president's incidents, it's impossible to deny. He's made it very clear. He prefers white people to people of color. And that is something we had a conversation earlier about. Is this statement impeachable? The statement itself isn't. When the president starts to govern based on his racism, that's impeachable.
But you also have to prove that. You also have to prove that's what he's doing.
I think that's a process that we should actually have a conversation
You may have that opportunity, because it looks like at this point Democrats will get control of the House. It depends. Will they cry wolf every time the president says something they disagree with and seek impeachment, or will they wait for an actual high crime or misdemeanor before they pull the trigger? I don't know that your party has that kind of self-control. All right, coming up, Democratic lawmakers say they will boycott the State of the Union address following allegations President Trump used derogatory language to describe some countries. But is that the most effective way to get the message across? I will ask Richard Fowler next.